2023 has not been a good year for Disney in any way, and that is sad to see considering this is the year they are supposed to celebrate their century of entertainment. 100 years of magic for generations to enjoy, where now they hardly understand that magic anymore. And this is something that was made worse in their television department by their series that is supposed to air soon known as Primos. And the reason I want to talk about this is because of my interest in talking about every major decision that Disney has done that somehow drags them down worse than they ever were before. But this is a situation that continues to upset people more than I thought. Because the problem over the last week relates to the release of the show's theme song, Oye Primos, upsetting many Latinos for its inaccuracies to the language. Of course, this is something I know nothing of concerning the fact I am not Hispanic myself in any way, so I have no clue about the language or anything else pertaining to the culture of Latin America, being a boy that was born in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on an island. But taking a look at this, it actually seems like it could have been a pretty tame situation that could have been easily resolved, but then again, it was just much easier for the crew to make things worse for everyone instead. Just anything that Disney has done throughout the past few years since 2020 has taken a downward spiral more than I ever saw coming. It showcases a deep level of misunderstanding on every single front for the company and the public, where they continue not to satisfy any side no matter what they do, whether they be regarded as the woke company that panders to that side of the aisle, or just straight up racist for not even understanding the cultural aspects of their own shows and not doing enough or anything at all. Now looking at Primos, we see a show that has a similar premise to Nickelodeon's Loud House and its spin-off The Casa Grandes. We're actually learning more about it. We can actually see it shouldn't be described as a ripoff of them either, based upon the experience that the creator had growing up that many can connect with in their own families. I mean, looking from that lens on the surface does show it isn't bad at all and something that most people should go in with an open mind. But then again, it all comes down to the Spanish problem that is being presented in the show, because this series is supposed to take place in Los Angeles by what I'm seeing, based upon show creator Natasha Klein's experience having 28 cousins, where this show is focusing on 12 to make it more easily accessible to everyone to watch in the background of large biracial families. And everything we've seen so far with all of these shows' creators seem to actually be very positive and nothing actually to hate towards, being absolutely overblown by what I'm seeing. But then again, this by no means excuse what mistakes that is happening in the show for what is perceived as simple broken Spanish. The only reason that many people are actually angered over the show that really doesn't warrant much controversy anyway. I mean, that's not to say everyone is overly angry at the situation, they're more of upset as what they're actually doing with the language, because this is where we have to discuss the main problem with the Oye Primos being the wrong way to say hey cousins, being grammatically incorrect, being singular rather than the plural oigan primos. Sorry if I butchered that, once again I do not speak Spanish. And looking at the issue, this is really something that you don't want to do when going into a show that is supposed to be to show this Hispanic family living in Los Angeles, where you have that background of people who actually speak the language. But then again, of course, Natasha didn't grow up speaking Spanish, which would be understandable if people actually took the time to look at the background of what the show is trying to be, rather than the simple 40-second main theme song, which doesn't actually describe much about the show, where the main character, as described by the creator, really doesn't speak Spanish, hence the background and why she actually does things wrong. But then again, of course, most people aren't going to be looking for that, and what you see is what you get, and what you get is something that gets what it wants, and what it wants is completely wrong. It's a situation that I see Disney keeps promoting everything the wrong way. Instead of trying to stand for something that everyone should comfortably watch, they stand to nothing to create negative attention because they only care about the money and what is culturally up to date in society at the time. They only care about what the most makes them the buck, and if they see the reactions to the thing are not positive, what we see with the promotion and marketing of things like Elemental, it will automatically fail because they don't really believe in the projects themselves, and that is really pathetic to see that corporation do. Because the real issue with this is truly a misunderstanding upon all sides on the issues, which Disney is very good at doing now, where most of us are seeing the blatant misissue of Spanish and the characters' names that are completely gross, like a cousin being named Cuquita, which seems very similar to a word that references to female genitalia. Various issues that could have been easily fixed but still not understood by the experience of the creators growing up in an environment that never spoke a lot of Spanish at all. But it is also something that can be easily fixed by them, but just made worse by the already infamous clip shown of the show's main voice actor.
The Spanish language is not a Latin American language. It's a language the Spanish conquistadors forced upon Latin American people. The only reason we're Latin people and not Native American people is because of that distinction. So be mad at me all you want for misspelling words in Spanish. Be mad at me all you want for mispronouncing words in Spanish. That doesn't take away from the fact that I am a Mexican-American, Native American woman.
The entire clip that she set up and the way she actually looked just seems so condescending that it just made everything about the situation worse than it needs to be, and I do not understand that. To defend broken Spanish because it comes from the problem of the conquistadors colonizing the Americas is just really downright stupid and shows a higher level of ignorance that disrespects anyone of that background no matter what you think, and the fact that you are also speaking English also, a language that comes from colonizers also. Because she already talked about the distinction of being Latin people rather than Native American, which doesn't actually make sense because the show is based upon growing up with a family with a Latin American background and not Native American at all. I do not know why that needs to be included in the show when that is hardly the actual experience and the cultural background of what is being presented by the trailer. That doesn't make any sense. Where she is just throwing an entire language under the bus because of this blatant smug defense of a show's language problem that could be easily fixed and not cause any great drama. A language that has its own roots in other languages, where throughout human history we have always changed the way we communicate through language, Spanish being a Romance language descended from like Latin, like how English already has taken things from Latin, French, and German and so many other languages that is clearly different from its Anglo origins spoken like hundreds of years ago. It is just illogical to make that comparison when that had nothing to do with what is trying to be said overall with this show. This is a situation that presents itself where you just want to gain the upper hand against people who hate your show, where you just failed in making your case to why people should be watching it, which I'm sure the creators do not want in any way. Where of course the distinction is this girl is not the creator of the show but the main voice actress of the show. So in that case she shouldn't be making these idiotic statements about a shallow small fact that is grossly inaccurate to the history because you don't explain it. These simple statements do nothing pertaining to the overall culture of the people who are complaining about the show, who do know more about their own stuff when people like me actually know little of. And like I said at the beginning, it is just so amazing that such a simple mistake can get overblown by the actions of a few because you're trying to prove a dumb point against those who want legitimate representation and good shows for the sake of being it, by a company that used to understand what it was meant for to be simple escapism entertainment that all of us enjoy no matter who we are, but no longer do because they feel justified in taking a direction to talk about social issues on one side to make money off of what is culturally popular, being the woke Disney that cares so much about everyone, which they actually don't when situations like this pop up, and what they do in China to release their own movies. And that's another reason why I wanted to talk about this issue, because of what I've shown and described in the past year that has made Disney far worse than they need to be, one that began with the Little Mermaid problem and set up the film for a terrible discourse over Black Ariel, because it would get attention, which at this moment is not working out for its box office, where it has the potential to still lose lots of money for them, despite being a success here in the States and not in Asia. It's one that's done not out of passion, even though Holly's singing was the deciding factor to cast her, where the actual issue is because of how the original story that was told that we know of, it changes the tale in a region that doesn't quite fit the story, and even is more ruined by the fact of how King Triton looks compared to his own daughter and the rest of her sisters, how it seems more illogical that a merman like this, despite being fictional, as a reason people brush this change of her off, still does not make any logical sense at all, and proves the point that you only did this for your sham diversity message, which you care little about, and only for negative attention to promote the film that you could just use so you could eventually sham people as racist if it was a success to prove the haters of the movie wrong for just enjoying a good retelling of a story you already did. I mean, despite what any of them think about the project they were involved in, they still deserve better, rather than being slammed constantly for being in a woke Disney production that never cared about the issues to begin with. It was not bad for them to actually have this diverse range of mermaids or other people, but the way it interferes with the story really is the reason why people are upset. And this is another issue I talked about in my Lilo and Stitch problem video, where that actually pertains to my own experiences being actually Hawaiian, where many people online complained that Nani's actress in the remake wasn't dark enough to actually be her despite being actually Hawaiian, which I actually talked was up for debate, considering that most people who research her background only see her Filipino and white ancestry that they gruesomely research for some reason. But beyond that issue, and pertaining back to looks of other actors who are actually Hawaiian who are actually lambasted by the public, is one that really ignores the fact that lighter skinned Hawaiians exist and not just the darker ones you saw in the movie, where even though I hate the fact that this is a remake of my favorite Disney film, people were just claiming things that are dead wrong to things as a Hawaiian. Most of the people claiming online are not Hawaiian at all and are just complaining about what they saw in a movie, which paid a huge amount of disrespect for seeing us as color rather than our own heritage and the make of the islands in the modern times, that so many people are of different colors but still have that same heritage. Someone like me myself that isn't quite as dark as Lilo and Nani are, but still has the Hawaiian blood to prove that he is much as what these idiots online are actually perceiving as Hawaiians are, which was something that really made me angry because this comes from a group of people who are talking about something they don't understand, much like the reverse situation here where the actress is talking about something she doesn't understand to the language that hundreds of millions of people actually speak in different ways and such, and has a history to it that she actually ignores to speak about. Where the main reason I wanted to compare this situation for me compared to this situation of Primos getting the language wrong is just to show how different people are reacting to the various decisions that Disney actually does not care about at all. How one side is pertaining to one argument that gets everything wrong and the other thing is pertaining to something that gets something other wrong. Different situations that pertain to different subjects but still overall the same thing that Disney does not get altogether. One where most people are just misunderstanding my skin color, and the other one having them misunderstand the language that can be cleared up but just made 10 times worse by the people involved in the production and just anyone who just speaks the loudest who don't understand a single thing. It's these two sides issue that makes things worse for Disney, whether it be the creator or the people who actually don't understand the situation. It's really just that Disney does not care about the actual cultural heritage surrounding it. That's all done and promoted in this way to make rage bait and actual good content, where sadly nowadays it's only Disney Channel that creates 2D rather than their own main studio that the company was actually formed around. I mean, that's not to say I would like the show, I mean it hasn't come out yet and I don't feel interested in it being boring and not for me, but still appreciate the TV world of Disney more so than its film because it actually has something it wanted to say. But what it wants to say now only creates more divisiveness than inclusion as they proposed for the past few years. Where other than that, I just hope they manage to clear this up because everything about this situation never needed to happen, where it seemed pretty tamed but only stoked by those who feel justified for what they personally believe in rather than what has culturally been there for years. And if they don't do that, then Disney would surely perish with their pathetic misunderstandings of an overblown situation they themselves caused. And yeah, with that said, I'm all done, so goodbye.